first things first. Let's go in chronological order. Supreme Darkness has gotten some announcements because they've made a YouTube video where they announced some of the things happening in January, and one of which had a little screenshot of cards from Supreme Darkness. We have some cards here that we know already, just confirmed some of their rarities, where but there's also 2 cards in here that are actually 2 of the TCG exclusives, 2 of the world premiere cards that are in Supreme Darkness, and it looks like we're getting some zombie support with Curse of the Ancient Turtle. It's a pretty cool artwork here with Pyramid Turtle on it. Pretty iconic card. Got a normal spell card. Banish a zombie monster from your hand or graveyard. Send a zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. When your zombie monster is destroyed by battle, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon a zombie monster with 2000 or less defense from your deck. You can only use each effect of Curse of the Ancient Turtle once per turn. This card is like a more conditional Foolish Burial for zombies. So I don't think it's a crazy card. At the same time, I don't think it's bad. Like, zombies are a pretty good type to actually have a Foolish Burial. You know, there's a bunch of zombies that have good effects in the graveyard. I'm not sure if you can use the banishing part to your advantage. I know there's one zombie monster that comes back when it's banished. I think that's the Spirit Xiangxi something. Remind me of its name. I want to look it up real quick. I do think they actually play that one as well. Spirit Dao. Hold up. Yeah, that one. Hold up. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, I've seen people play that one. So hold up. So this is Xiangxi, the Spirit Dao. During your main phase, you can send a zombie from your hand or deck to the graveyard. If this card is banished, you can banish a zombie monster in your graveyard, special summon this card, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. Now, this is going to require some setup. Before you activate the Curse of the Ancient Turtle, you're going to have this one in your graveyard or hand, I guess. You could also technically banish it from hand, but you need another zombie in your graveyard already. So you do require a decent bit of setup before you can do that. But if you can do that, if you can pull that off, it's pretty powerful. You have Shiranuis, I guess. Yeah, Shiranuis are pretty good when you banish them. You have, hold up, Shinobi Necro, right? Shinobi Necro. If this card in the graveyard is banished face up to activate an effect, you can special summon this card. Yeah, you can use Shinobi Necro with it. You've got Al Ghul Mazera. Which is, if a zombie monster, you can banish this card instead. If this card is banished from hand or grave, special summon this card in defense position. Then you can reduce its level by 1, sure. Free extension. So there are ways within the zombie archetypes to use the banish to your advantage, right? So this card I think is interesting. Because zombies can make good use of it. The second effect, of course, is just a little bonus. Well, like, it's not going to come up very often, but sometimes your opponent won't have another way to deal with your zombies other than attacking them, and then it's actually a pretty good bonus in the graveyard, right? So this card is actually not bad. For TCG exclusive standards, it's above average, I think. For like one of the like free agent cards in a set, it's not bad. And then we have another zombie type monster here as support. It's called Dark Necromancer. It's a level 4 zombie. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a fiend or zombie ritual monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. Then you can add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. If this card is banished, you can target one of your banished level 4 or lower fiend or zombies, special summon it. You can only use each effect once per turn. This one I've already read a couple of days ago, and I was a little bit confused. The only archetype I could really think about that uses this is Vendred. So, but I don't know that much about Vendred. It can summon itself from banished. It can summon itself from banished. So that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking like the second effect on this card is pretty powerful. I don't know how well you can use the first effect. Like, I'm not sure. I'm sure it's helping some ritual themed decks. But I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Vendred, does Vendred have a ritual spell that can summon from the graveyard? They might, right? It'd be fitting. Yes? Okay. So is that the idea, essentially? Like, you're gonna summon this, you're gonna send the ritual monster from your deck to the graveyard, you're gonna add the ritual spell, that ritual summons it from the graveyard? Is that the kind of, like, idea that you're trying to do with this card? I mean, that's not bad for Vendred. I don't know how much that really means, like... I don't know if that means Vendred is gonna be good or not. I was kind of... After reading the first one, I was hoping for this one to be like a more generic zombie support. This one is rather niche, right? There is not that many decks that can use this card to its full potential, I think. But in those decks, it's probably nice. Whether this is good enough to actually make any of those decks viable, I doubt it. But we'll have to wait and see, I suppose. Right? It's not a bad card. So, yeah. So yeah, those are the two cards that were new in this announcement. So we're still missing some TCG exclusives, I think. We already know the 7 Mitsurugi cards, and now we know those two. So how many is it typically? World premieres 10? Is it 10? Usually is 10. Okay, yeah. So there'll just be one more. All right, and now we're moving into Alliance Insight, which is the set after Supreme Darkness. With some more card announcements. We've got a little Rock Link 3 over here. Dogurado, the Moving Stone Relic. Link 3 Earth Rock, 2+ monsters, including a rock monster. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can target a rock in your graveyard. This card gains attack equal to that monster's. During your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can target another monster on the field with attack equal or less than this card's. This card loses attack equal to that monster's, and if it does, destroy that monster. This card is cool, but this is... I feel like this would have been appropriate on a Link 2 monster. On a Link 2 monster, I could see playing this. For investing 3 monsters into it, I feel like it is not good enough. Maybe if I could pop on my own turn as well. Like, if I could maybe pop twice, if the attack numbers line up. As a Link 2, I think this could have been a good end board piece, because it's basically just this. What this card does, long story short, what this card does is it gives you a pop, right? It gives you 1 pop on your opponent's turn, which could have been okay on a Link 2. On a Link 3, I don't think this is going to be worth it. I do not think this is going to be worth it unless you're playing a deck that's like locked into rock monsters and you have no other options. Like, this might be the best option if you're locked into rocks, but this is not very good. In terms of the design of the card, I think it is kind of cool. Like, the interaction that it provides is fine. You know, it's like a little bit of a, like, you have to gain enough attack to be able to pop a monster that's smaller than it, which is okay. And then we have Ferociously Angered Sabersaurus. We have a Sabersaurus Retrain, rank 4 Fire Dinosaur, 2000 attack, 600 defense. I already hate this because why does it not have the same stats as Sabersaurus? I'm not happy about that. 2 level 4 monsters, so it is generic. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. You can detach a material from this card, destroy a dinosaur monster in your hand or face-up field. Then you can change the battle position of 1 monster on the field. At the start of the damage step, if your other dinosaur monster battles, you can destroy this card. And if you do, that dinosaur monster gains 2000 attack until the end of the battle phase. Pop the baby. It's so angry that it gains 100 attack. All right. If you're playing a dinosaur deck, I think you are going to make this very rarely over something like Lagia or Dolka. The scenario, I mean, it could be an okay extra deck option to be able to, like, if you ever have 2 level 4s on the board, you can pop any extra babies you have in hand to get going. And then later on, you can boost your Tyranno by 2000 attack, right? Making a Tyranno 5500 being able to attack multiple times is pretty good. However, there already are options to make your Tyranno bigger, right? Like you could, if you have access to a rank 4, you can make Dugaris, for example, which is going to make your Tyranno even stronger. You can make Pentastag, which is going to give it piercing, right? Like there's other options to do that. Doesn't seem particularly good to me, but also not terrible. Like I can see use cases for it. I can see use cases for this card, although it's probably not strong enough to justify using an extra deck slot on it, but maybe. These two I've already seen on Twitter. We have 2 retrains for 2 very old cards. We have like I think Firewing Pegasus and Serpent Night Dragon. Serpent Night Dragon, the Wicked Dragon, level 7 Dark Dragon. Same stats as Serpent Knight, I think. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You contribute 1 other dark monster from your hand or field. Special summon this card from your hand. When this card is destroyed by battle, you can target a monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard, then you can special summon this card. Like this card, I don't think it's very good. The only thing I'm noticing right now is that the second effect is not once per turn. So technically this thing is like, it can be a full board clear, right? Like you can just crash into everything that your opponent has when you're going second. And defensively also, like if your opponent doesn't have a way to clear it with an effect, they can't out it by attacking. It's very niche though, ultimately. Like, I don't know if that's gonna be good enough for it to ever see play in any scenario. The only scenario that I could see it being used in is like in a blind second strategy, where you're trying to crash into everything. The problem is if your opponent doesn't have a negate, you could also just activate Raigeki, or Dark-Hole, or Lightning Storm, or all those other cards that we already have that don't require you to waste your battle phase. It's insane in Cube. Yeah, it'd be a pretty good card in Sealed or Draft, but I don't know about Constructed. Firewing Pegasus, the Crimson Heavenly Horse, level 6 Fire Beast. You can only special summon with the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. I despise MathMech with the 5 gift subs. Appreciate that. Thank you. I support your agenda. You can only special summon with the first effect once per turn. You can also use the second effect once per turn. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, it can attack directly this turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can inflict damage to them equal to this effect's chain link number times 300. And if you do, this card cannot be destroyed by card effects activated before this effect in this chain. This is a very odd effect, in my opinion. This is super weird. Minus 8,000 versus Ishizu. There you go, like chain link 13. I don't really understand the point of this card. The only real application for this thing is to like do some burn damage. This card just seems bad. I don't feel like I'm underreacting or overreact. This card just isn't good, I don't think. For the first one, I can see some use cases. For the second one, it's just like, okay, dude, you could also just activate Poison of the Old Man if you're this down bad. I do find these rework like cards kind of cool. The retrains, I do always like those. But I wish these two, they could have been a little bit better, I think. It would have been a little more hype. Next up, we've got Evil Hero Vicious Claws, level 7 Dark Fiend, 2500, 2500. You can only use the first effect of this card's name once per turn. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per duel. You can target a hero monster on the field, special summon this card from your hand in defense position, and if you do, that monster gains 300 attack. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. Then, if you have a monster in your graveyard that mentions Dark Fusion, you can destroy a card on the field. Why on earth is this once per duel? This is just the most normal-ass secondary effect I've ever seen on a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Why is that once per duel? It's not great, but this one will probably make the cut because of synergy with DPE. To get 1 extra pop? So you're sending it with Fusion Destiny? Can you send it with Fusion Destiny? Yeah, it's a level 6 or higher hero and a Destiny hero. So what you're telling me is This one is once per duel because otherwise you would send it for Fusion Destiny and then your DPE basically has 2 pops every turn. Sure. You know what? If you look at this card strictly as a Fusion Destiny send, it is a lot better than Destiny Hero Dasher, which is what people played previously. Actually, you need a monster that mentions Dark Fusion. Which monster mentions Dark Fusion? What are you sending for Fusion Destiny that mentions Dark Fusion? Any Suda hero support? Yeah, but DPE needs a Destiny hero monster. Is there a Destiny hero that mentions Dark Fusion? Because if you're gonna Fusion Destiny for DPE, you're gonna have to send a level 6 or higher hero monster plus a Destiny hero monster. Like, this cannot even replace Dasher in like other decks because you won't have another monster that mentions Dark Fusion. Okay, so this card is just like bad. You have to play heroes or evil heroes to play this, and then it's an okay Fusion Destiny send. Okay, sure, I guess. We have a card that people were pretty excited about. So let's find out what it's all about. I've seen a bunch of posts of this, but I haven't read it yet. Gordian Schneider, normal spell card. This card's activation and effect cannot be negated. At the start of your main phase 1, target any number of face-up cards on the field. Banish a card from your hand or 6 from your extra deck for every targeted card face down. Then return the targeted cards to the hand. Oh. Is that good? I'm trying to think the scenarios in which this card is good. Because this card's activation and effect cannot be negated is pretty good. It is very deck dependent, I think, how good this card could be. Okay, can we agree that like as soon as you banish cards from your hand, this card starts being mediocre? Like having the option to do that is okay. Like if I draw, let's say, okay, I can imagine a scenario where I'm playing this card. Hear me out, all right? So I'm playing a deck like a normal Yu-Gi-Oh deck where I can afford to banish 6. Like any deck that would play Prosperity, right? Previously, in theory, could get rid of 6 cards from your extra deck because it's not random. You can choose those ones, right? You can choose the cards you want to banish. So any deck that could play Prosperity beforehand could theoretically play this card now. But I think most Yu-Gi-Oh decks would be willing to get rid of 6 cards in their extra deck, but not 12. You can't really get rid of 12 cards in your extra deck. So unless you're playing a deck that doesn't need the extra deck at all, like Flu or something like that. But like any normal Yu-Gi-Oh deck, you would be able to banish 6, but you wouldn't be able to banish all 12. So what you can do is it'll always be like a bounce 1 card by banishing 6 from the extra deck. But if your opponent has made a really good board with multiple monsters, you can decide like, okay, I'm gonna like banish an extra card from my hand to bounce another card. So I can like, you will basically always go equal with this card, I think, in practice. Unless you play a deck that can banish 12 cards from the extra deck. But that's rare, I think. That's rare. But that's not bad. Because if you think about that, that is like starting your turn off by imperming a Baron de Fleur or something like that, or an Appaloosa, or a Ryzeal Detonator, right? But instead of just negating it, you're actually bouncing it. You can basically turn any other card in your hand if you don't need it right now into an extra bounce. Why do I run this over Imperm? Because you can bounce 2. You can bounce 2 if you want to, right? Imperm, you don't have a choice. I don't think it's broken or anything like that. I think it's going to be an option. If you bounce 2, can you banish from hand and extra deck? Yes. For every single card you target, you have a choice of card from hand or 6 from extra deck. Having the option to out floods with it is nice. It would be a lot better at outing floodgates if it wasn't start of the main phase, I guess. Because usually the way it's going to go is you're going to start playing, your opponent's going to flip skill drain, and then I guess you could go battle phase, main phase 2, bounce to skill drain, keep playing in main phase 2, but that's a relatively bad interaction because the skill drain will still have resolved, it'll still have negated your normal summon or whatever, and then it goes back to their hand, right? So, but having the option, of course, is good. I like this card because it's not like obviously broken, but I think it's good enough that it makes you consider it in a couple of scenarios. Like, this is the kind of card design that I like because it's not obviously broken, but it is good enough to be considered like, you know, this is the kind of card that you're gonna pick up, and depending on the deck you're playing and depending on the boards that people make, it could be a pretty good option. Because against some decks, losing 2 cards from your hand to get rid of 2 of their bodies is worth it. Like that'll solve your problem. Like if you're playing against, I don't know, right now you're playing against Ryziel Fiendsmith, and they end on, you have no hand traps. They end on Caesar plus Detonator. You go, well, okay, Gordian Schneider, banish 1 card from my hand and 6 cards from my extra deck, and your end board is gone with 1 card. That's not bad. I think this card is good. It doesn't banish for cost, so you can bait Omnis with it. I mean, it can't be negated. You're not gonna bait an Omni with it because it can't be negated. That's just another bonus, right? That is, like, this is, you do have to consider that this card is designed for the OCG as well, right? Like, it comes from the OCG where they still have cards like Baron de Fleur, right? So for them, this is even nicer. Against certain end boards, it can even be better than Dark Ruler. For example, something like Desiree or Varudras, where there was play around with Dark Ruler, right? If they changed something else to the Dark Ruler, then they could negate it with like Desiree. This one they can't do that with, because this card just says can't be negated. Desiree can negate this? No, it cannot. This card's activation and effect cannot be negated, so no. But you cannot target Desiree. If it has Sequence attached, you can't target Desiree. You can target Sequence though. The more I'm thinking about this card, the more I think it's going to be good. I don't think it's going to be an auto-include in every single deck because this cost, banishing 6 from your extra deck, is important. It matters. Start of the main phase makes it a little bit weird in some decks that draw cards. Like if you're playing a deck that often tries to go like, I don't know, Resolve Engage or Resolve Talents to draw, or plays Upstart Goblin or Allure of Darkness or anything like that. The card is a little weird in those scenarios, but it is pretty good. I do like it. And next up, we have another Synchro monster from Alliance Insight. Jura, the Curse Thunder Deity. Level 11 Earth Psychic Synchro monster. 3100 attack, 3100 defense, generic. You can only use this card's name's second effect once per turn. Each time your opponent activates a card or effect, gain 300 life points when it resolves. During your opponent's turn, you contribute this card, then pay 1,500 life points, activate one of these effects. Destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Destroy all face-up spell traps your opponent controls. This card is very good, and I think any deck that can make level 11 synchros is definitely going to consider playing this card. But when I say very good, I mean like in a good way, where like it's good enough to see play, but it's not as broken that like you're gonna hate your life whenever this card is gonna be summoned against you. It's just a good card, you know, like it outs Floodgates. I think this part is very important. The fact that it only destroys face up spell traps is really good. If this card was just Feather Duster as a quick effect for all face downs as well, I think that would have been a little stupid. The only thing that annoys me about this card is that like this first effect didn't have to be on it. This making it like a super annoying card to play against in time doesn't really need to be there, but sure. Other than that, it's pretty good. Better than Psychic End Punisher. I mean, yeah, not always though, right? It's not clearly a better card than Psychic End Punisher. Psychic End Punisher in the right scenarios is still very, very powerful. And I don't think they are comparable. Better going first. Even that is not always true. If you're playing a deck that pays a lot of life points, summoning a Psychic End Punisher on turn 1 could still be better. Depending on the matchup, if your opponent just doesn't have an out to Punisher, you might win the game on the spot if you just make it turn 1. Like you pay like half your life points with the Strudo or something, and then you make Punisher and like you just win off of it. Against some other matchups, this card might just be better. Every deck has a Punisher out by crashing usually. Yes, depending on how you set it up. That could also just cost them too much life points. And also it costs your opponent a lot of resources to crash into Punisher. But yeah, it's been a while since they've made a good generic level 11 synchro. I mean, it's basically just Punisher, right? What other good 11 synchros are there even? I mean, Amazing Dragon is good, but only in Punk. Star Eater is from 12 years ago. I think that's all of the cards that we had to look at. It's been a mixed bag of announcements over the last couple of days. Some of these cards are pretty good. Some of these cards are just okay. Some of them were not very good. Overall, my vibe from 2025, and that's I think the segue into what we're doing next, is that card design for the most part has taken a direction in like a more, I'm hoping a more balanced way than in 2024. I feel like there's less cards that are just obviously broken, at least so far.